Oh, my friend, if you could only see through heaven's eyes today, you would know that what you call an ending, your Father in heaven calls the beginning. You may be standing in a place where the road seems blocked, where the dreams you once held feel like broken pieces in your hands. You may think it's too late, that the time has passed, that the opportunity is gone forever, but let me tell you, God is never late, and when He moves in ways so wonderful, so unexpected, you'll be left saying, I never saw it coming. You see, the enemy whispers, it's over. The world says you've missed your chance, but the voice of God says, hold on, child. I'm still writing your story. You think your chapter is finished, but God holds the pen, and He's about to turn the page. What He is preparing for you is so much greater than anything you've lost. And when it arrives, you'll understand why you had to walk through the waiting, why the silence felt so long, why the night seemed so dark, because the morning was being prepared just for you. When life pushes you into a corner and the walls seem to close in, it's so easy to believe the story is over. The dreams you once held close feel like faded photographs, and the hope you carried with such passion now feels like a burden you can barely lift. You think to yourself, this must be it. This must be the end. But here's the beautiful truth. What looks final to you is not final to God. He is the author of your life, and He is still holding the pen. Not a single chapter ends without His permission, and if He's allowing you to remain in this place, it's only because He's preparing to write something even better on the next page. You see, our perspective is so limited. We measure life in moments, in days, in seasons, but God measures life in eternity. He sees the whole arc of your story from beginning to end, and He knows exactly how every twist, every turn, and every pause will lead you to the destination He planned for you long before you even took your first breath. Just because you've reached a difficult chapter doesn't mean the story is over. It means the narrative is about to shift. And in God's hands, the shift is always for your good. Think about the most gripping, beautiful stories you've ever read or heard. Often, the most hopeless moments are followed by the most breathtaking resolutions. A skilled author knows how to draw the reader into the tension so that the joy of the resolution feels that much greater. God is the greatest author of all time, and He allows moments in our lives that seem like endings because He knows the joy of the next chapter will be beyond anything we can imagine. When we're in the middle of the plot, we can't see what He's setting up. But if we could, we'd understand why we needed to go through what we're going through. Sometimes we confuse a chapter break with a period. We see an obstacle, a loss, or a heartbreak and think it's the conclusion, but God sees it as a comma, a pause before He continues the sentence. That divorce, that job loss, that betrayal, that season of sickness. It's not the period on your life. It's a comma in a much longer story. And God never wastes a comma. He uses it to create space, to draw in breath, to build anticipation for what He's about to do next. The enemy will try to convince you that the pen has slipped out of God's hands, that you're now the one responsible for writing your way out of this mess. He'll whisper, it's over, you've gone too far, you've failed too badly, you've missed your chance. But nothing could be further from the truth. The pen has never left God's hands, and the ink of His grace has never run dry. He writes with mercy, with power, with perfect timing. Even the detours and disasters that you think ruined everything can be woven into a redemption story more beautiful than you dared to dream. And here's something you must understand. God is not just the author, He's also the director of the scenes in your life. He knows how to cue the right people, the right opportunities, and the right breakthroughs at precisely the right time. Just because you're in the quiet right now doesn't mean nothing is happening. Behind the curtain, God is moving pieces, aligning events, and preparing the stage for your next act. You may not see the lights yet, but they're about to shine on a scene you didn't even know was possible. It's in these moments, when you think you've reached the last page, that faith becomes the bridge between where you are and where God is taking you. Faith says, if God is still holding the pen, then there must be more to my story. Faith trusts the author even when it doesn't understand the plot. And that kind of trust allows you to rest, even in uncertainty, because you know your story isn't in the hands of chance, it's in the hands of a loving God who cannot fail. Many people stop too soon because they mistake the current page for the final one. They pack away their hope, stop dreaming, and settle for a life far smaller than what God intended. But if you could see the next chapter He's writing, you wouldn't give up now. You'd keep believing, you'd keep showing up, and you'd keep turning the pages in faith. Sometimes God lets a dream die, not to punish you, but to resurrect it in a way that brings Him glory and brings you joy beyond measure. The dream that comes back to life in God's timing is always greater, always richer, always fuller than the dream you tried to make happen in your own strength. He's not rewriting your story out of desperation. He's revealing the masterpiece He had in mind all along. If you've ever seen a master painter at work, you know that the early strokes can look messy, unclear, and even ugly. But the artist sees the finished masterpiece in their mind from the very beginning. You may be in a season where all you can see are random brushstrokes that make no sense, but God sees the full canvas. He knows exactly what He's creating, and one day you'll stand back and see how every stroke, even the ones painted in dark colors, were necessary for the beauty of the whole picture. So here you are, staring at the pages of your life, thinking you've reached the end. But the author is leaning in, his hand steady, his heart full of love for you, and he's about to write a chapter that will take your breath away. The page you're on right now is not the last. It's simply the setup for the greatest turn in the story yet. And when it unfolds, you'll understand why the last chapter had to end the way it did. Because without it, you wouldn't be ready for the beauty that's about to come. Waiting is one of the hardest things we will ever have to do because it tests both our faith and our patience. In a world where everything is about speed, fast answers, instant results, immediate gratification, waiting feels unnatural. We want the doors to open now, the prayers to be answered now, the breakthrough to come now. And when it doesn't, our hearts can grow weary. But in the kingdom of God, waiting is never wasted. Every moment of delay has purpose. Every season of silence is filled with preparation. God uses waiting not to punish us, but to shape us into the kind of people who can carry the blessings He has in store. When you think about it, some of the most powerful figures in Scripture endured long seasons of waiting before stepping into their calling. Joseph waited years in prison for a dream God had given him as a teenager. David was anointed king, yet spent years tending sheep and running for his life before he ever touched the throne. Even Jesus waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. If the Son of God Himself walked through decades of preparation, how much more might God be doing in you before releasing what He has promised? We often mistake God's silence for absence, but his silence is often a sign that he's working behind the scenes. Waiting seasons are like the root stage of a plant's growth. What's happening beneath the surface is far more important than what you can see. A plant can shoot up quickly without strong roots, but it will wither just as fast when storms come. God will not place you in the next season until your roots are deep enough to withstand the weight of the blessing. During waiting, God refines our character. He uses it to burn away impatience, pride, and selfishness. He teaches us humility, endurance, and trust. These are not lessons learned in moments of abundance. They are learned when we're stretched thin, when we feel overlooked, when we have no choice but to lean on Him. The kind of maturity God is after can't be microwaved. It has to be developed slowly, layer upon layer, through real life tests and trials. If God answered every prayer the moment we asked, we would never develop the spiritual muscles needed to handle what's coming. A sudden promotion without preparation can crush a person. A blessing received too early can become a curse. God knows that timing is just as important as the promise itself. He's not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. And that takes time. Waiting also reveals the true condition of our hearts. It shows us whether we want God's hand more than His heart. Many people love God when He's answering prayers, but can they love Him when He seems silent? Waiting strips away the distractions and exposes our motives. Are we after His presence or just His provision? Do we trust His plan, or are we only comfortable when we understand it? It's in the stillness of waiting that our faith is tested and strengthened. Sometimes the waiting isn't because God is holding something back, but because He's aligning people, places, and circumstances to work together perfectly for your good. The delay might be because someone else's heart needs to be softened, or because a door that would have led you astray needs to be closed before the right one opens. In ways we cannot see, God is connecting dots that will make perfect sense later. Think of a symphony being composed. Each note, each pause, each crescendo is carefully placed to create beauty. If you rushed through the music, skipping the rests, you would ruin the piece. In the same way, the rests, the pauses, are necessary for the masterpiece of your life to sound the way God intended. The waiting season is also a season for preparation on your part. This is the time to grow in wisdom, deepen your prayer life, sharpen your skills, and build the habits you'll need for the next level. So many people waste their waiting by complaining and comparing when they could be using that time to become ready for what's ahead. You don't just wait passively, you wait actively with expectation, becoming the person who will be able to handle the very thing you're asking for. And while you wait, God is developing your capacity to trust Him even when the path makes no sense. Trust that isn't tested is shallow, but when you've walked through long nights with no answers and still chosen to believe, your faith becomes unshakable. You'll find yourself anchored, not to circumstances, but to the unchanging character of God. That's the kind of faith that can stand through storms and carry you through the unknown. There's something else about waiting. It draws us closer to God. In desperation, we pray more, we listen more, we seek Him more earnestly. And in doing so, we begin to know Him more intimately. Often, we come to realize that while we thought the blessing we were waiting for was the goal, the real treasure was the deeper relationship we gained with Him along the way. The promise becomes secondary to the presence, And that's where transformation happens. You might feel right now like you've been put on pause, but pauses are not the end of the song. They are the places where the music builds, where anticipation grows, where something powerful is about to happen. The length of the pause does not mean the music is forgotten. It means the next note will be all the more beautiful when it finally comes. In the waiting, refuse to let frustration steal your faith. Refuse to believe the lie that nothing is happening. Because in God's world, waiting is never wasted. The hands of the Master are at work, shaping you into someone who will not only receive the promise, but steward it well. And when the waiting is over, you will look back and see that every day, every tear, every moment of silence was preparing you for the exact thing you were created to carry. Right now, even if you can't feel it, even if nothing around you looks different, God is already moving on your behalf. The answer to your prayer may still be invisible to your natural eyes, but it's not invisible to heaven. Long before you see the evidence, God begins setting the miracle in motion. He starts arranging circumstances, aligning people, shifting situations, and opening doors that will lead you into the fulfillment of what you've been asking Him for. The absence of visible change does not mean the absence of progress. Much of what God does begins in the unseen realm before it manifests in the physical. Think of a seed planted deep in the soil. You can water it, nurture it, and care for it, but for a long time you will see nothing happening on the surface. You might even be tempted to think nothing is growing, but under the soil, life is bursting forth. Roots are spreading, strength is being built, and the seed is preparing for the moment it will break through the ground. In the same way, your prayers plant seeds in the soil of God's timing. The roots of your breakthrough are growing right now, even if you can't see them. We often want God's answers to appear instantly, but the truth is, sudden blessings are rarely sudden in heaven's process. They may seem to arrive out of nowhere, but they've actually been in preparation for a long time. God is not just concerned with giving you what you've asked for. He's concerned with orchestrating the details so that when it comes, it will be perfect, complete, and beyond anything you could have arranged yourself. That's why He moves in ways that are often hidden until the appointed time. In the spiritual realm, God sends His word forth, and it begins to accomplish what He desires before you ever see the results. The moment you pray in faith, something shifts in the unseen. Sometimes that shift takes minutes to manifest. Other times it takes months or years. But delay is not denial. It is the gap between God's command and your visible experience of it. You must understand that while you wait, angels are moving, resources are traveling, and hearts are being prepared. One of the most challenging parts of faith is believing that God is working when you can't trace His hand. We want to see signs that something is happening, but God often asks us to trust His heart without the evidence. He is never idle. Even in what feels like silence, He is speaking to the right people, closing the wrong doors, and preparing opportunities that will align perfectly with your destiny. It's also important to realize that God's answers rarely travel in a straight line. We imagine a direct path from our prayer to the fulfillment, but God's process often takes us through unexpected turns. He might have to protect you from a wrong connection before introducing you to the right one. He might have to let a door close so that the better door will be open at the right moment. He is weaving together threads of your story that will only make sense in hindsight. Sometimes the answer God is sending requires preparation on the part of others. If you've been praying for a relationship, The other person might need healing or growth before they're ready to meet you. If you've been asking for a career breakthrough, the right position might still be in the process of being created. If you've been seeking healing, the right doctor or treatment might still be on its way to you. Just because it hasn't reached you yet doesn't mean it hasn't started moving. Think of how the sun rises each morning. When you wake in darkness before dawn, the sun is already on its way. You just can't see it yet. The darkness doesn't mean the sun isn't moving. It simply means you're still waiting for its arrival. In the same way, your breakthrough could be moments away, but without patience and trust, you might give up before it arrives. This is why faith is not just about believing in God's ability. It's about trusting His timing. The Israelites were promised the land of Canaan, but before they entered it, God told them He would drive out their enemies little by little, not all at once. Why? Because the land needed to be prepared for them, and they needed to be prepared for the land. Sometimes God's answers move slowly, not because He's unwilling, but because He's ensuring the foundation is solid before the blessing rests upon it. And here is something that should fill you with hope. Many times, the answer is already on its way before you even pray. God knows your needs before you speak them. He sees the end from the beginning. There are moments when your prayer simply aligns your heart with what He has already decided to release. It's not a matter of convincing Him to act. It's a matter of stepping into what He has already begun. While you wait for the visible evidence, your role is to keep your heart open and your faith active. Speak words of faith rather than words of defeat. Thank God for what you cannot yet see. Keep doing the things that align with the answer you're believing for. If you're praying for rain, carry an umbrella. If you're praying for a new opportunity, prepare your skills. If you're praying for a relationship, work on becoming the person who will thrive in it. These acts of preparation are declarations of trust in the God who is already moving. There will come a moment when the invisible becomes visible, when the unseen answer steps into the light, and when what you've been praying for meets you face to face. And when it happens, you'll realize that God was working all along, that every silent day was part of a much greater orchestration than you could have planned on your own. The answer was not just coming, it was already in motion from the very beginning. When God moves, He does not simply meet the bare minimum of your request. He surpasses it. His nature is abundance, not scarcity. He is the God who turns water into the finest wine, who feeds thousands with a few loaves and fish, and still has baskets left over, who tells fishermen to cast their nets again, only to nearly sink their boats with the catch. This is why, when His breakthrough comes into your life, it will not just answer the prayer you prayed, it will overflow beyond what you thought possible. The moment His timing aligns with His will for you, you will see that every moment of waiting, every tear, and every disappointment was leading to something far greater than what you imagined. Too often, our requests to God are shaped by the limits of our own experiences. We pray for what we think is possible, for what seems reasonable, for what fits within the small frame of our imagination. But God sees a much bigger picture. He is not bound by your past, your limitations, or even your expectations. The thing you're asking for may be good, but the thing He wants to give you is better. That is why sometimes He doesn't give you exactly what you ask for, because He intends to give you more. Consider the story of Lazarus. His sisters asked Jesus to come heal him before he died. But Jesus waited until Lazarus was in the tomb for 4 days, when hope was gone by human standards. They wanted healing. He gave resurrection. They wanted their brother restored to health. He gave them a miracle that shook an entire community and revealed his glory in a way no ordinary healing could have. God's answers often surpass our requests, but the road to them may look like delay or even denial. When your breakthrough finally arrives, it will not be because of coincidence or luck. It will carry the fingerprints of God. It will come in such a way that no one will be able to take credit for it but Him. And when you see how perfectly it fits your needs, how beautifully it arrives in the right moment, you'll understand why it couldn't have happened sooner or in a different way. The very things you thought were setbacks will reveal themselves as divine setups for something far better. God's abundance is not just about quantity, it's about quality. When He opens a door, it's the right door. When He sends a relationship, it's the right person. When He provides, it's exactly what you need and more. He doesn't just give enough to get by. He gives enough to bless you and those around you. His blessings often ripple outward, impacting people you didn't even know would be touched by your miracle. Sometimes the reason His breakthrough exceeds expectations is because the process leading up to it stretched your capacity to receive. If God had given it to you when you first asked, you might have been too small in vision, too immature in character, or too unprepared in skill to handle it. But after the waiting, after the refining, after the growing, your heart is larger, your faith is deeper, and your gratitude is richer. You can carry the weight of the blessing without being crushed by it. It's also in God's nature to make His blessings undeniable. He loves to work in ways that leave you saying, only God could have done this. That's why your breakthrough may come in a form you didn't expect, through people you never thought would be involved, or at a time you thought was too late. He wants you to look at it and know, without a shadow of a doubt, that it came from His hand. When God's answer comes, it often redeems not just the moment you're in, but the years you thought were wasted. He can restore joy, peace, and opportunity in such a way that it feels as though nothing was lost. And more than that, He can add blessings that make you forget the pain of the waiting. Like Joseph, who went from the prison to the palace in one day, the shift can be so sudden and so full that you realize the delay was worth every moment. His exceeding goodness also serves another purpose. It's a testimony. When people see the scope of what God has done in your life, it becomes a living witness to His faithfulness. They begin to believe that if God could do it for you, He can do it for them. Your breakthrough becomes a beacon of hope, pointing others toward the one who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. This is why it's dangerous to settle for less than what God has promised. The temptation in long seasons of waiting is to lower your expectations, to convince yourself that something small is better than nothing at all. But when you truly trust God, you hold out for His best, knowing that what He has prepared will not just meet the need, but exceed it. Settling for less may feel easier in the short term, but it robs you of the joy of seeing His fullness poured out in your life. So when the day of fulfillment comes, you will not only have the answer to your prayer, you will have more than enough. You'll have a blessing so abundant it spills into every area of your life. You'll see that His plan was never to give you the bare minimum, but to give you an overflow that speaks of His love, His generosity, and His power. And when you hold that blessing in your hands, you'll know deep in your spirit that the long road, the hard nights, and the unanswered questions were all leading to this moment worth every step of the journey.